halfway there. Oh, Dan's pissing over there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's me, Dan Boyd, and I'm with Campbell McLaughlin, and it's the 40k Badcast.
It's me, Campbell. Yeah, fuck. Oh, shit, that's bad. Never mind. Oh, Dan's good, though. Yeah, we're 40k Badcast, episode 11, the big 1-1, right after the big 1-0.
That's how counting works.
Isn't it weird how it's not called 1-teen?
Or what do they do in The Hobbit? It was 11d1 was 111?
I thought that was just 11s.
I don't know.
For at 111 o'clock in the day.
Wouldn't 11s be 1111? Because then you have two 11s.
Yeah, it'd be 11 a.m. So that's when your typical tea and biscuit time is. Anyway, fucking Hobbit shit. What's going on? It's the Auspex. We'll start with the Auspex and say what's on your painting desk and what you are doing. Dan, what are you doing in your painting and hobbying time?
Well, no surprise over here, but more Blood Bowl, still working on Star Players. They keep releasing them, so I keep painting them. Other than that, I am kind of consumed by thoughts of 8th edition.
Are they chasing you in your sleep? What's going on?
So, 8th edition is coming around the bend. I pre-ordered it last weekend. It's because it's June 6th when we're recording this, so 3 days ago I pre-ordered my copy. I'm splitting it with one Mike Brandt of the Nova Open fame. He's taking the Death Guard. I'm taking the Primaris Marines. So I'm sort of on this like weird fact-finding mission to find out how am I exactly going to do these guys. I know they're going to be Raven Guard because that's my squad.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking, should I buy some Forge World shoulder pads for these guys? Should I try to get that Forge World transfer sheet? Like, what am I going to do? And on top of that, I also have like 60 guardsmen that I should paint in my closet at home right now. I should let them out of the closet and paint them because
some people got skeletons in the closet, some people got guardsmen. That's just how it is.
Undead players and guard players have both. That's a really bad joke. Skeletons. I'm very sorry, everybody. Anyways, so I'm thinking I should paint these guys up because looking at all these leaked rules, and boy, oh boy, have there been a lot of leaked rules. I'm thinking that more guardsmen might be better.
Yeah, I think more guardsmen is always better, truth be told. But
yeah, so I'm kind of working on that. That's what I'm thinking right now. Like a lot going on in the hobby.
Yeah,
a lot of things are happening.
So as for doing maybe Forge World pads for those boys, the guys in the starter set are like molded, like they're not quite snap fit, but something pretty close to that. So you're not really going to be able to do molded shoulder pads. Although I did see some guys on Shapeway who are putting out just icons that are molded to that shape. So that might be the way to go if you want to do that, or you could stick with the transfers.
I'll probably just stick with transfers.
Yeah, it'd be cheaper and easier.
Yeah.
And also transfers, if you're doing them right, can look damn good.
It's true, yeah. And the Forge World transfer sheet, I believe, is one of the ones with it's like the plastic thing, not the bullshit laser printer transfer shit that I used for all of my Raven Guard. It looks like shit. So I'm not too worried about it. I think it's going to be all right. And I've been doing transfers for long enough that I know how to get them right.
Yeah, the Ultramarines Legion transfer sheet I used on my Heresy dudes looks great. So I can only assume the Raven Guard one is just as good.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna grab it and see what I can do with it.
Yep.
I'm very excited though. Like those 25 or whatever Marines to paint, I'm really ready to go on these guys.
I'm looking forward to having like a nice compact force that I should be able to paint up pretty quickly. And again, I'm kind of flip-flopping a little bit between doing them as Black Templars or Raven Guard. Or Blood Ravens, sorry.
Do Blood Ravens, man. They're releasing a fucking Gabriel Angelos model.
Yeah, they are. Also, I just had an idea for if we do a doubles event, we'd share a display board, have one half be like my basing and have like a half Blood Ravens icon, and the other half be your basing and be a half Raven Guard icon, and it could be called like Flight of the Ravens or a Murder of Ravens. I don't know what the plural for Ravens is, and we could do that as a little co-display board thing.
It would be Ravens.
Is that the new Space Marine flyer?
The new chapter that we would be making would be the Ravens.
My original chapter, the Raven Ravens.
Yeah, it's half Blood Ravens and half Raven Guard. The Raven Ravens, and or the Blood Guard. The Blood Guard sounds
corny,
cooler. I guess more fitting with the setting, but the Ravens is funny.
And they'd be in their trademark formation, the Birdemic.
The bird swarm. Oh no.
The Boyds. Boyd's birds.
No. Oh, that's
I think that's your Little League team, actually.
Boyd's birds.
Boyd's birds, yeah.
There you go. You go Boyd watching. When you
Bad
go bird
News
watching
Boyds.
with me. These jokes are just getting better and better, everybody.
We're Boyds of a feather.
Okay, all right. What the fuck are you working on?
So speaking of birds, I actually built my Storm Raven.
Oh shit, you got a Storm Raven?
I got a Storm Raven a while ago for my Black Templars because of course I don't have one for my Retro Ultramarines because they're old school.
Didn't exist.
And I never got around to doing one for my Crimson Fist or my Dark Angel. Dark Angels don't get them, either way, I never got around to getting one before. And I've got like all the Black Templar bits, and I figured, you know what, this would be cool. I could put a bunch of Sword Brethren in it and dump them out because even if Sword Brethren and Storm Ravens are shit in the next edition, who knows if they are or not, it's still a cool thing I can do. So I got one of those a while ago, and I built it just the other night because I'm in the process of moving, and it's one more box I need to move, and I already have the foam for it, and I'm going to need to move the foam case. So I'm just going to build this and put it right in the case and not touch it till after I move.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I'm on the mend as far as the whole wrist thing goes, so I'm not like 100% yet, but I was able to build that, which wasn't too bad. I finished up painting a squad of 10 handgunners for my Empire dudes. I primed a bunch of spearmen for the same Empire dudes because I can't stop buying shit-ass state troops. They're terrible. They're fucking awful, but I keep buying more of them. I don't know why.
They look pretty cool.
They do look cool. They got their flancy shirts. They got their really prominent bulges. Carl Franz's Pajama Pals is a rapidly expanding army. But yeah, so that's going pretty good. And I got in a game with them too against my buddy Dylan's Dwarves.
A lot of the Blood Bowl star players have very elaborate cup situations going on.
Yep.
In the groin area of their models. I'm having a lot of fun painting them.
Just lovingly highlighting a nice armored crotch.
A nice spiky crotch.
Well, that's the thing with Blood Bowl is you can have defensive equipment. You just can't have any actual knives. So I'm guessing you're gonna have a dude with they use the punching dagger as like the way to get around that because it's quote unquote defensive equipment. So I'm looking forward to a model with a defensive knife codpiece.
Like almost like Tom Savini from Dusk Till Dawn with
Sex
his
Machine, yeah,
his penis gun or codpiece gun or whatever.
Yeah,
we're hitting these movie references today, bud.
Dude, I was gonna say kind of like the thing in Seven, but that's a lot more disturbing and a lot less funny.
Hey-o. Yeah, let's make jokes about that.
Or the chainsword hat from the Necromunda Goliath leader.
Oh, see, okay, I have a question about that.
Yeah,
I saw that back in the day, and I had no idea what the fuck that was.
I still don't, and I own one.
Is that like? Does that guy just get like an extra chainsword because he's got one strapped to his fucking head?
I'd assume so. Like it counts. I'm sure it counts as a piece of war gear.
I'd allow it.
I'd enforce it.
Whatever. Anything else on your aspects?
Not my own hobby table. No, I'm just kind of in the process of packing stuff, so I'm not really doing a whole lot of hobbying at the moment.
Hey, how many masturbation jokes did you get when you had like your wrists all wrapped up and shit?
Actually, I had one person straight up be like, "So, dude, can you jerk off?" And I was like, "I mean, it kind of hurts too."
Oh my god, why? Okay, enough of the masturbation talk. You know what? I shouldn't have opened that can of worms. I should have been like, you know what? Maybe Campbell had a funny joke about people being like, oh, I guess you can't. But no, now you well.
No, you open that can of worms and it splattered all over your face.
I hate you. I hate this.
Every moment's a treasure, Dan.
All
Let's talk about new releases. There's some new shit coming out real soon.
Oh my god.
That ridiculous collector's edition of 8th edition that costs $420 dollars.
Blaze it.
It's $420 purge it. Like it's got so much cool stuff in it, but I'm not spending $420 on a rule book and a bunch of tchotchkes because like I bought the old 6th edition collector's edition, which came with like the cool messenger bag and all sorts of other shit, and a year and a half later it was worthless. Like some of it's still kind of cool, but it wasn't really that good anymore. So I'm not going to do that.
What about that collector's edition mini rule book?
That's cool. I'll
that
get
you
one
can't
when it comes out.
Take out of your house because it will get stolen. Very few things I've noticed in the community. Very few things get fucking jacked from people's tables at like tournaments or whatever. But if you got a collector's edition mini rulebook lying around, somebody will gank that shit.
I believe it. It's compact and valuable. But I figure
those cards look really cool, though. The objective cards that come in that thing. Have you seen those?
I saw those. Those are nice, and I like the little metal tokens that have like angry imperial sayings on one side and a number on the other.
You know what? If you've got 420 Blazed dollars to spend on rulebooks, fucking good for you. I hope you enjoy it.
Flame.
I really fucking hope you enjoy it because it looks cool as shit. It comes with an art book. It comes with a giant map of the previous galaxy and the current galaxy.
That's cool.
So, if you have it, man, great. I'm happy for you. I'm not hating on it. I'm refusing to hate on that one.
No, I think it's really cool if you want to buy it, but I'm not into it. But
is there anything maybe tank shaped that you're into?
Oh, nice segue there. The Space Marine Repulsor coming out, the hover tank, which is finally an update of the deodorant tank from Rogue Trader.
It took them long enough.
Right, and I hope someone has that. I hope someone has that like 4-inch long, like shitty little homemade conversion they did in 1988 that they will try to use as this thing in an actual game.
Okay, so not a huge fan of this model. I get it. I get where it comes from. The whole boxy Imperial Space Marine, tank look, the aesthetic that they got going on. And I know it's the idea that like Belisarius Cawl has been like fucking around with stuff, taking existing tech and modifying it. I know that's kind of the shtick they're going for. But when you compare this tank to the Custodes grav tanks, the Custodes grav tanks are far and away better looking than this Space Marine Repulsor.
I can agree with that. I think it looks cool. And I like it's kind of like a modern Bradley armored fighting vehicle style turret on it with all the missile pods and all the tchotchkes all over it. And I like the pintle-mounted giant-ass Gatling gun. But it does confuse. It is a little jarring seeing such a boxy, square vehicle on hover platforms. Like, I get that even like the land speeder is a bit more streamlined. But seeing something that's meant to hover be just a big old shoebox is a little jarring. Because like the first pictures of it that were kind of blurry in the background, it looked like it had treads. And I think it makes more sense with treads than it does with hover thingies. I think it looks cool though.
I do like the turret.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's just not that interesting otherwise.
I see it as like kind of an update sort of stopgap between a Predator and a Land Raider.
It's not the worst vehicle they've put out.
No, it's far from it.
It's not the orc buggy that you can still buy.
Hey, for 1997 or whatever, that was pretty all right. For Gorka Morka, that was pretty cool.
I guess so. I mean, it's still going strong after 20 years.
Yeah, orcs were that small when they were toughness 3.
So sort of a mixed review from the 40k Badcast on the Repulsor. Anything else come out?
What about the Redemptor Dreadnought?
So I guess we've only seen a couple of pictures of that thing from Warhammer Fest, right?
Yeah.
But
there's pictures of it next to like Hellbrutes and it just towers above them.
I fucking like it, dude. It reminds me of some of the cooler looking battle mechs from MechWarrior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when I played MechWarrior 4 computer game.
Fuck yeah.
Back in like 1999 or 2000 or whatever the fuck it came out. Like I was a big fan of a mech called the Thanatos. Mainly because you could strap a giant shotgun to it. And it had jump packs, even though it was real like hefty, and you could just fly around and get real close to things and shotgun them to death. And I was like, that's pretty cool. But it was big and boxy, cool. And it had legs kind of shaped like the Primaris. What is it called?
Redemptor.
Redemptor Dreadnought.
When the Contemptor is not enough, you get Redemptors.
First you contempt, and then you redempt.
Unless you're exempt from the redemption.
Hey. More rhymes.
Yep.
I like it. I think it's a much needed update on the Dreadnought idea.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Dreadnought idea hasn't changed since the early 90s.
Yeah, like they've iterated on it a little bit here and there, but yeah, it's still very similar.
I think it's good. The Repulsor isn't great. I think the Redemptor is great. I'm quite frankly, this is one of those things where they're just going to go with whatever the fuck they're going to go with now.
Mm-hmm.
There's no artwork talking about the new stuff that they're going to build that has been, going around forever. They're on new ground, and I'm very excited to see what they bring us.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that they gave everyone's favorite angry refrigerator a pair of knees. Like it's just a lot more articulate than the old one.
Yes.
I love the old box knot. I really do, but this one looks pretty damn cool, and it's also huge. It's like almost twice the size of a Hellbrute in the pictures I was taken next to.
I think there's a little forced perspective there, but
there is, but it is still like it's big.
Yeah,
it's big.
It's exciting. It's a good time to be in the hobby.
It is, especially if you're a Space Marine player. I am curious where they get
which
the
we
dude.
both are.
Yeah, we are. I am curious where they get the dude to put inside the Redemptor Dreadnought, since these things are all supposed to be new. So I'm curious if they're just like, we're just gonna hardwire you in there right from the start or what. But I don't know. I'll see that fluff when I see that fluff.
I can't speculate on that.
Yeah,
makes for good radio. Okay, should we move on to our first topic of the day?
Yeah, I think it's one we can both talk an awful lot about.
So we wanted to talk about, we've been putting it off for a couple of weeks because a couple of episodes rather, because we've had more pressing or funny things to talk about on the thing. But we wanted to talk about our experiences painting an Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum army for, I guess I finished not finished, but, was working mainly on my Steel Legion in 7th edition. I think you had finished, quote unquote, your Valhallans before that.
For what it's worth, a guard army is never finished. It's just in progress.
That's a good point.
But I started my guard in fifth edition. Or I had 2 guard armies in 5th edition. But the Valhallans, those guys, they really I kind of stopped doing active work on them about halfway through 6th.
So painting guard can be kind of an onerous task, and anybody who has a horde army, such as your Nids or your Orcs or Guard or I don't know, Kroot. Not Necrons though. Necrons are the cheap and easy way to paint your way to success.
No, if you want to dry brush them up, yeah.
You fucking spray them with lead belcher, dunk them in Nuln Oil, dry brush them with Necron compound, and then paint a little bit of green, and oh wow, you've got a good-looking Necron army.
Zen and the art of dry brushing. Yeah.
The feeling you're hearing, listeners, is envy, because it's not that easy to paint guardsmen. Though it's not hard, it's not that easy. So we've both got a couple of pretty large guard armies, and they can be quite the task to do. So I want to talk quickly about organization and how important that is for getting a large project like this done. And I stole an idea, not stole, I guess just used an idea that was suggested by another 40k podcast, the Independent Characters, to use a Kanban board to organize my painting. So if you're not familiar, Kanban board is like a big whiteboard with a bunch of Post-its on it, and there's sections that the Post-its go in, and you put on there what you're working and what you're painting, what you've primed, what you're building, all this stuff, and you just use columns and organizational structure to see what you're doing next. And it worked out for me very well.
Oh yeah, I've been using a Google Docs spreadsheet with my gaming group for years, and you total up like what you're working on, like model progress, assembled, painted, etc. And it's cool to look back at also past years and see how many models you painted.
So the first thing I did when I started painting is I did a ton of infantry first. I did 2 platoons and the command section before I touched any vehicles with my painting. And I thought that was a pretty good idea because painting vehicles is easier and more fun than painting, fucking singular guardsmen. So I got a lot of them out of the way. Yeah,
it's adventures and dry brushing when you're doing vehicles. So
fucking when they released that Mechanicum Standard Gray spray, I almost did a fucking backflip.
Let's say your Steel Legion scheme is predominantly gray on the vehicles, and
the base coat
troops.
is Mechanicum Standard Gray. So it used to be paint spray black and paint a couple of layers of Mechanicum Standard Gray on top of that to even it out, which took a while.
Yeah,
because you have to, you're doing it with sort of a wet paint, a watered down paint to get a nice smooth coat. Thanks, Duncan. And so it takes a little bit, but with the spray, you just one coat that shit because the finish is slightly different from the pot of paint than the spray. But so you just one coat that shit in a watered down coat, and you're you're fucking off to the races. You're done.
Yeah, like similarly, so my tank scheme, like my guard are also kind of a khaki color because they're based in sort of the Red Army from World War II, but their tanks tend to be green, then whitewashed. So I was doing black, then painting the whole thing Dark Angels green, then dry brushing it in like successive coats of like a more Catachan green, whatever that is now, and then the lighter green from up there. So it used to be like dark green, olive drab, lighter olive drab, and now I can just spray them with that dark green with the Dark Angel spray. That definitely takes a step or two out of there. And it means I can paint a tank in like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, it takes it from pretty, not difficult, but time consuming to something that is really a breeze. Now, on top of it, I do a camo pattern with pale yellow.
Yep.
Which is kind of a pain in the ass to do because yellow is a hard color to paint over anything that's not yellow. And so you have to work it up from, base color yellow and get it going with successive layers of paint. And that can kind of be a pain in the butt, but I try not to do it. I try to make it as easy as possible by painting the camo part only on the parts of the tanks that don't have a lot of nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
Because that'll slow you down big time.
So with mine, what I do is a lot of my tanks have graffiti on them, which just is like whether it's a red star in it or a sickle or some Russian graffiti that says "Crush the Fascists" or whatever the fuck I feel like writing there. It's all pidgin Russian. It's like Google translated Russian. But and then I'll whitewash around that, and the whitewashing is just dry brushing white with like the Praxetti white dry or texture paint or whatever, and that gives it the kind of whitewashed, battle-worn look I like giving my tanks. That's what they actually looked like in World War II.
So I remember you describing those tanks probably on the Something Awful forums before I saw them, and I was like, I don't know if that's going to look good. And then you posted pictures, of real-world examples of hastily whitewashed tanks to better fit in on a winter theme, and you pulled it off really well.
Well, thank you. Like, I was doing homework on it because I wanted to theme the army sort of around the Russian Red Army just because I liked that look. And the Valhallan models, which are fantastic, are really clearly based on that. So I was looking at the actual schemes, and they would paint a tank green, like as the base color, and then if they're fighting in the winter, which in Russia was a lot, they would basically take brooms and rollers and whatever they could actually apply paint with and just hastily scrub white paint onto the damn thing.
I like it. Camouflage in mere moments.
So that takes me to one of my first points for painting guard is looking at historical or real world uniforms for reference is a really cool thing to do because they have a more military look and a more grounded look than say Space Marines or fucking Eldar or whatever. You can definitely draw from those for inspiration, although with the caveat to avoid the most obvious symbolism, like don't put swastikas on your guys. It's cool if you're using like camo that looks kind of like the German camo, but don't put fucking swastikas on them. Don't put the Confederate flags on them. Don't put don't put real world symbols on them if you can help it.
Just try to cut down on the hate symbols, really.
Yeah, be tasteful. Like I have a red star on my guys. That gets the point across well enough without being straight up me painting the Soviet flag on every guy.
Right, and I mean I use I would say if I can amend your point a little bit, you can use examples from what Games Workshop has provided with a lot of these guys. Because the studio painters for Games Workshop don't really go nuts painting Imperial Guard. They kind of did with the Tempestus Scions, the new Stormtroopers, with their weird blue and all that stuff.
I hate that scheme so much.
They usually keep it pretty, I don't know, realistic. So when I was doing my Steel Legion, I just looked at the box and I was like, oh, I'll paint them exactly like that. And then I saw the tanks and how they were painted, and I was like, oh, I'll just paint them exactly like that. And I know that that color scheme, I think, is based off like a certain color scheme that some German army people used in World War II, like their urban scheme or something similar to that. But I never really went to pictures of Panzer Corps dudes for my inspiration. However, I had a tough time figuring out what I was going to do with planes. So at first I wanted to like paint them in like a World War II color scheme because a lot of the World War II color schemes used like especially for like the naval planes for the United States Navy, use like darker on the top and lighter on the bottom.
Yeah.
So it would be harder to see them. And I didn't go with that. I didn't go with that because I didn't think that a plane on Armageddon would act in like a camouflage way, would act like something that we're familiar with. Because Armageddon is a polluted hellhole.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that it's just smog everywhere.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I painted my planes brown.
Yeah, I've seen your Valks.
I mean, they look good. I like them.
Yeah,
I think the brown really worked for them. And I also found some evidence, though it's very, very hard to find, that there is a Armageddon battle fleet, like an actual battle fleet Armageddon, and I think that they have a brown and white scheme on their capital ships.
That's cool.
And so I was like, well, I want to incorporate the brown in. Then I was like, well, it makes sense if these Vendettas are flying through polluted bullshit in Armageddon. And then brown is not a difficult paint to paint either. It's not a different color to paint. So I use a lot of Rhinox hide on that.
Yep.
Which is a
good
very, very good coverage on that one.
Yeah. I had a similar like, what am I going to do for the planes? Because like it doesn't make sense to whitewash them because they didn't do that. But I also didn't want to paint it white or whatever because my guys are winter themed, obviously. And I didn't really want to paint white because it's not that fun to paint, especially on big flat surfaces. So I was looking at more like World War II Soviet air schemes that their planes had. And they tend to be like browns, greens, and blacks on the top, and then white or light gray, light blue, or white in the bottom. So I just sprayed it green on top, flipped it over, sprayed it like gray on the bottom, and then just did a lot of dry brushing to kind of build up a smooth gradation. And I was very happy with how that thing looks. The Thunderbolt, by the way, is a terrible unit, but I love how it looks. So
it's a really cool looking plane.
Yeah, it's one of the coolest bad units.
Snub nose and those sort of short wings.
Yeah, it's got that
very
sort
aggressive.
Yeah, it's got that sort of World War II look to it. So in the process of doing, like, I was doing a good amount of research for just to make this army look good, and I ended up on a lot of like dad wargaming websites, like a lot of websites about focusing for either reenactors or the kind of people who are like, you want to paint the buttons on the cuffs of these guys in this color bronze because in 1944 they switched from silver to bronze or whatever and shit like that. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's a good thing about doing a guard army is there's a ton of historical and a ton of reference material out there. Just blanket, there's a ton of reference material out there.
Yeah, because like for Space Marines, you can look at more knight heraldry and stuff like that. But for these guys, it was fun to do go full on historical with it.
It's important though if you're starting a guard army to have a plan.
Yes.
we've talked about army painting before on the show, and having a plan is the most important part of if you're going to do an army project.
Yeah, painting guard is a trial by fire for batch painters.
Oh yeah, it's man, that's I talked about earlier in the show how I have like 60 guardsmen that I want to paint, and I'm just looking at this pile of guardsmen in my house, and I'm just like, ugh. I feel bad because I have them, and they're not doing anything. Yeah,
I mean, I think I've painted for my Valhallans, if you include the Stormtrooper detachment, probably like 200 infantry and like 15 tanks for them. It's a lot. You're gonna need to paint a lot of everything. Whatever army you're doing, you're gonna paint a lot of everything. Yeah. Because I'm an infantry focused army, and I still have a shitload of armor.
But I'll tell you, man, when you can put out like a solid 2,000 points of guard, of just guard, of tanks and infantry, there's nothing cooler.
Yeah, there's nothing cooler than putting it back in the case on turn 2.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Your guard does suck, at least they have sucked in previous editions. But still, when you can line up, and it's a big psychological thing too. You and I, we played in the APOC game in January, and how everybody was paying attention big time to all my completely ineffective tanks down there.
Everyone was going after them.
ignoring the stuff that can actually hurt things.
Yeah, no, it's a good sort of shock to put on the table. Like
ranked up tanks painted the same way.
Yeah,
is awesome. You bring it out there like Nova a couple years ago when I brought fucking 14 tanks. It was my list. And
So dumb.
people were like, "How am I going to beat that? How am I going to beat that?" And I was like, "I don't know." But in my head, I was like, "It's really easy. They don't hit anything, and they kind of suck."
Just charge them or shoot them from behind, but I won't tell.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see what I can do at Nova this year. You know, I have all these fucking tanks. We'll get something going.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm bringing to Nova this year. I don't think I'm going to bring my Valhallans because I don't feel like carrying like 4 KR cases of metal models. By the way, if you want to get in shape, just get a backpack with like 400 metal guardsmen in there and just walk around a lot. You'll get jacked.
That's how it works.
Like if it weren't for my wrist being all hurt, I'd just start benching some guardsmen right now. I'd do great.
It's a pretty good idea. Okay, so let's wrap up our discussion of painting guard. And do you have any big takeaways you want people to think about when they're painting guard?
I think planning is more important with guard than with most armies, just because of how much you're going to need to do. Like, looking up historical and real world uniforms for reference is super cool. Painting swastikas on your guys is super not cool. So, use your best judgment there.
Adjust accordingly.
Adjust accordingly. And don't be disheartened when they all die in turn 2. It's how it's meant to be. That's how it's life in the guard.
I would say for somebody painting guard, don't get too complicated with your paint scheme. Keep it, especially on the guardsmen, keep it simple. Keep it simple and keep it relatively easy because you're going to have to paint a lot of them. And you can always go back later and improve your paint job. But when you're getting them table ready, don't go too crazy. Now, there is a guy on the Something Awful forums who goes by Yeast who ignores this and makes like fantastically painted, like meticulously awesome guardsmen every single time. And I'm filled with envy because he also does Steel Legion whenever I see his much better painted spacemen. But keep it simple and get through it. Just power through it. Hour or night type stuff. Get through it, and then when you have a full army going around, it feels so cool.
Yeah, washes, colored sprays, and layers are your friends with guard.
You're right about that. So, Campbell, let's lighten it up a little bit, shall we?
All right.
We were very happy to have a group of gamers. What are they called again?
Ham Slam Eternal.
Ham Slam Eternal, who we know from the Something Awful forums, made a whole fuck ton of Yo Mama jokes.
Like, too many Yo Mama jokes. Like, entirely too many.
A lot of them are funny. A lot of them are not funny. And we are going to read a few of them to break up our segments in the show today. Campbell, why don't you go first?
Yo Mama so nasty, the box she came in said, "Stop collecting."
That's my favorite, too, actually. I was hoping you weren't going to read that one. I like this one. Where is it? Your mama's like the Ultima Sector, covered in nurglings and ravaged by thousands of Marines.
Yo Mama got more gaps than Finecast, and I don't want to fill those neither.
Yo Mama's like a tomb world, dead and barren up top, teeming with dangers below.
Your mama like a Deathrilla, because getting plowed by her is fatal.
Your mama's so fat she cast a shadow in the warp. Okay, so there are a ton of these. We'll try to post them in show notes. Not all of them, but a few more show notes. But we thought they were really funny. So Buffalo Chicken, The Charge, and thanks a whole lot for sharing these with us.
Yep, and we're hoping to game with those guys pretty soon, right?
Yeah, you gave me Buffalo Chicken's contact info. I gotta get in touch with him and just introduce myself.
Dude, they are good dudes. Last time we went, I went down there something last year and just hung out at Buffalo Chicken's fucking cabin in the woods and just played toy soldiers with a bunch of strangers to the internet, drank a lot of alcohol, and watched them start fighting with hammers. It was great.
It sounds a hammer fight at the end of any drinking session is always a good thing.
Yeah, and then they started yelling Sigmar while they were doing it. It was pretty good.
Oh, that's funny. All right, so we're going to move on. We have a segment where we're going to talk about the dangers or the pitfalls of store gaming. Now, we all know, as Campbell was just talking about, the best kind of gaming, of playing this silly hobby, is in somebody's house with beers, surrounded by friends. Mm-hmm. But you don't always get the chance to do that. Sometimes, if you're like me and you live in a tiny apartment, you have to go elsewhere to play. And one of the easiest places to go is a game store. And if you live in the Northern Virginia area like I do, you have plenty of game stores to choose from. But the problem is, game stores are public places and are sometimes covered in nurglings and ravaged by thousands of Marines.
And Yu-Gi-Oh players.
And Yu-Gi-Oh players if they don't happen to be, an actual games workshop. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the good and the bad, and of course the ugly, with playing in game stores.
So let's start with the good, just because we don't want the segment to be all bad all the time. So first of all, they're probably the best place to actually meet people for gaming, not for dating. It's actually I'd probably put them at the bottom of the pile for that one.
I don't know, dude. If I liked chubby gamer dudes, I think that'd be a pretty good spot.
I mean, no, if smell is not an issue, it's a pretty good place. But anyway, so gaming at stores, it's a neutral meeting space. So you don't have to invite strangers into your home, which is really nice. So for instance, if you're trying to find a game and you're on a forum or a Facebook group or whatever, and you're like, hey, who here wants to meet up and play a game? It's usually more convenient and a little less invasive to meet someone at some game store instead of hey, stranger, come into my home and try not to fuck everything up. Because I've made that mistake
hey,
before.
Stranger, come into my home and blow up my fucking bathroom. Blow it right the fuck up. Oh, you got lunch right before you came over? That's good.
Fortunately, that has not happened with me.
That's great.
Although I've definitely had people that I've been like, you know what, whatever, sure, come over to my house, we'll play a game. And
I've done it at your house.
You have? Oh, Lord. I've just sat there for 3 hours being like, when will this end? Why is the stranger in my house? Why did I agree to this? I can't just leave. It's my house, and I live in an underground one-room apartment.
Yeah, it can get rough. But
it's
game stores, man,
space.
They can be worse.
Oh, they can always be worse. Everything can always be worse.
But no, there are some really good things about game stores, like pickup games. There are times I don't do it with fucking 40k because it's just too many fucking boxes. But I'll put my Blood Bowl shit in my car for when I go pick up the new White Dwarf or something. And while I'm in there, I'll be like, "Hey, anybody want to get a game of Blood Bowl real quick?" And then I can, spend 90 minutes playing some Blood Bowl while I run the errand that I was doing.
Yeah, and that's cool. You can make a new friend that way. That's how a lot of. If White Dwarfs in the 90s are to be believed, that's how most people meet their group.
I don't think that's before the internet that was how people met up. It was you'd go to a geographically central location and play games with the people there and try to make friends. Yeah, which is still a legitimately good way to make friends and get people to play games with.
It is.
And game stores are really good for that.
Yeah, and you'll tend to have a larger pool of opponents because, while maybe not everybody knows about this forum or this thread or this group on Facebook or whatever, they know the game stores there, and a lot of people just hang out there. They're really... So there's this concept that isn't really thought of much in American thinking, but it's called the third space. Basically, not home, not work, just a place you hang out at a lot. And for a lot of people, that's a coffee shop or a library. And for a lot of other people, it's a game store. If I go to the Games Workshop store in Brookline here near me, there's always going to be at least one table full of people painting. There's always going to be at least one table where a game's going on. And for a lot of people, that's just where they like to hang out.
It's true.
It's cool just to kind of hang out with some people and just, painting is fun with other people. Gaming is fun that way. When I was
in college, and I was for a short while still living at my folks', I would I remember one summer when I was doing summer classes, after I'd finish the homework of the day in the afternoon, I would go to Games Workshop and paint.
Yeah,
and just hang out and paint with people there because at that time the Games Workshop Springfield was a very, very healthy gaming community. Mm-hmm. The store manager there was a fellow named Beng who was just amazing, fantastic, just welcoming and inclusive and nice and friendly, and would pretty much let people run whatever they wanted in the store as long as it was Games Workshop stuff. We played Battlefleet Gothic, we played Aeronautica Imperialis, Mordheim, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, everything.
Nice.
And it was just a really good place to be. Everybody was friendly. Everybody was nice. Some unsavories would come in every now and then, but the general feeling of the store was that of friendliness and inclusivity.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. I really, really enjoyed it. When they Bing moved to California and I think it was California. I don't know. He moved away. And they changed the format of a store. It was a 3-person store. It was a larger store. They changed it to Games Workshop did. This is back years ago when they were, the management was making a lot of questionable decisions, and they're doing one-man stores all over the place. And so they did that with the Springfield store, and they turned it to a one-man operation. And for me, that's also coincided with the drop of 6th edition.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it just sort of killed the hobby for me for a couple of years.
I hear you. So, like, the Warhammer store here was run by this guy named Adam, who is moving on to open another store, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. But he was running that place for a while, and he also fostered this very inclusive community there, and that informs the clientele. Because when the person running the store is like, hey, everybody, be cool to each other, I'll help you out, you tend to get a lot of people who are more in line with that line of thinking. While, say, at the store Pandemonium that I've talked about before, the people there are a bunch of, like, really exclusive assholes, and what do you know, that's the kind of people who end up being there. So a store that's run by a good manager, well run by a good manager anyway, can really foster a healthy gaming community for you to be a part of or you to dip your toe into.
So I have a funny story about that store.
Okay.
So I was there playing some 40k, probably with my friend Darren, because we played a lot in those days. He had a lot of Chaos armies, and I had Marines and Grey Knights at that time. So we did a lot of thematic, a lot of the battle missions. Remember that book, Battle Missions?
Yeah, it's a great book.
A lot of those missions. His Chaos against my Raven Guard, or his Demons against my Grey Knights, and we had a lot of fun with that. But I remember we were out there playing a game. And the table next to us were these 2 brothers. And it wasn't the Kopak brothers who used to spend a lot of time with that, but it was a different pair of brothers. And these guys were getting into it. They were fighting. They were saying mean things to one another. There was, accusations of cheating. And it got to the point where one of them grabbed the other brothers. I think one of them had Tau, and grabbed his, like, what do you call it, battlesuit guy, and slammed it, spiked it into the floor.
Fucking hell.
And so what does the other brother do? Much like a baseball player, wearing a fucking 98-mile-per-hour pitch, charges the mound. He comes around the table and goes to attack. And so I'm standing next to this, and I'm like, well, I got to do something. So I grab the 2 kids. And I'm like, no, you can't fight. You can't fight. You can't fight. Calm down. And they're, it's immediately like, well, he did this, he did that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, listen, fellas, he's your brother. He's the only brother you have. You got to love one another. And they looked at each other, and they kept fucking fighting. And eventually one of the store guys came over and was like, if you guys don't stop fighting, you're going to get kicked out. But I'm there. I'm trying to be like sentimental and shit. I was like, oh, family. And the kid's like, fuck you, fucking stranger guy. We're going to fight. So, yeah. I thought that was a pretty good story.
Yeah, try telling Cain and Abel to be good brothers. So I've got a horror story. I mean, I've got tons of horror stories, but so I was playing at the Complete Strategist on Com Ave in Boston. I used to be friends with the manager before he passed a few years ago.
On Com Avenue?
Com Ave. Commonwealth Avenue.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you said Cum Avenue. And I was okay.
I'm pretty sure Cum Avenue is a side street.
I've been to Boston a couple of times. I didn't know that they were that creative with their street names.
Oh, lordy. Anyway, so I was the Complete Strategist, which is mostly terrain that I donated.
The Complete Strategist?
Yeah, there's a few. There's a branch of that in Boston.
You didn't hear the joke.
Oh, come. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll stop. Sorry.
Wow, man, bringing your A game. So I was there. I was getting a game with my buddy because, again, I lived at a small apartment. It was more comfortable to go there to get a game, even though, he and I lived a little ways away. We'd walk over there and get a game. And this guy comes in, and he's like, this guy's already there, and he's like your very stereotypical pencil neck dork. It's like, oh, that's a nerd. That's a fucking nerd right there, and this is coming from a fucking nerd. And he's like, hey, can I watch? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I'm just trying to play the game. And every single time I'm trying to kind of teach him as I'm playing, I'm like, yeah, so see, I'm going to roll these dice right here. See, I hit these, and I killed this thing, and I take the model off. And he goes, why'd you take the model off? I'm like, because it's dead. And he's like, I don't think I understand. I'm like, all right, this is cool. This is weird. And he's there. He just keeps up with these non sequiturs during the game. And I'm trying to be inclusive and, like, include him in, like, the story and what's going on, all this stuff. And I pick up the the big Warhammer rulebook at the time, and I was like, yeah, this thing's so thick it could like stop a bullet. It's like a really lame joke. And he just goes, so like a 22 rimfire or like a 32? Because I think like a 5.56 round would go right through that. And I'm just like, oh, cool, you're insane and kill people. And we're trying to play the game, and like right near the end, he turns to me and says, hey, how do you know if someone got arrested? I'm like, what? He says, well, a friend of mine, he said he was gonna go rob some stores today, and I want to make sure he got it. I don't know if he actually did it, and I want to make sure he's okay. I was like, check the police blotter, I guess. And normally I made it a policy to every time I met somebody at a store to give them my contact info to see if they want to meet for a game, and that is not one kid who I gave my contact info to.
I think that's I think that was a good decision.
Yeah, and my friend's girlfriend showed up because she was like, ooh, what's this Warhammer thing you guys do? And of course she shows up and just gets an earful of this strange child the entire time, or not even a child, he was probably like in college. And a man-child, boy child, really, a man boy. And yeah, that definitely didn't influence her opinion positively.
Well, this is what we're getting about the negative aspect of the gaming store, is it's a public space. You can't control who comes in. And though I think it's funny to have like little kids fighting about shit and like spiking each other's models. I thought that was kind of funny. But every now and then you get weirdos in there that are either, I find, not like scary or anything, but normally just like they won't shut up about something you don't care about.
Yeah, or they'll like start theory hammering over your shoulder. Like, it's a public space, and
oh my god, you know what I hate? Yeah. You know what I fucking hate when I'm playing a game
gaming,
and somebody's like, "Well, why don't you do that?" And I'm just like, "Well, why don't you get the fuck away from me, dude?"
Thing is, a store won't usually kick someone out unless they're actively dangerous. So if there's someone in there you don't get along with, they're probably not going anywhere until they feel like it.
Yeah, and that can be very annoying.
Yeah, like I used to be part of I still am part of a group that doesn't really meet anymore called Dork and Morka, and we were
that's
the
a
nickname.
Good name.
Yeah, the nickname we had in the Boston gaming community was the Fortress of Arrogance, because we were very exclusive. We'd have people in, and like someone come to our gaming club, and we'd hang out with them, and if we liked them, like, boom, you're our friend now, and you can keep coming by, and we'll be happy to have you. But generally, if you were someone like, say, that Pencil Neck Geek I was just talking about, or like those Fighting Brothers, we'd just be like, yeah, no, you're not coming back here. Like, we don't want to game with you. And we turned away a good number of people, and they were people who I would not want to be in the same zip code as.
Well, I mean, that's the whole idea. You're talking about the third space. I've always felt that it would be, I mean, I don't know if it's even possible, but having something like a community-run space for wargaming, not necessarily a store, and not necessarily a public space, but something that a community could collectively own and go to. Like I don't even know how you do it.
Well, that's kind of like the gaming clubs you see. Like, I went to one in England where it was run in a run like above a bar, and there was a bar in the gaming space, and that was really awesome. It was like a nightclub with some Warhammer going on. It was great. I'd
kill to fucking do something like that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, the group is called Hate. I think it's like Hampton Area Tabletop Enthusiasts. Those guys are a lot of fun. It's not a gaming group that drinks. It's a drinking group that games.
There you go.
From what I gather, but it was a good time. But so before we go, I want to tell at least one more good story about gaming at stores and so on, because it's been a lot of negativity. So when the Warhammer store opened, I met like a lot of local Boston gaming folks, some of whom I'd met before, some of whom were wholly new. And I met this dude, Christopher, who introduced me to this just a group called like Boston Wargaming or something like that on Facebook. And we organized a game, and it was his Emperor's Children versus my Ultramarines. I beat him pretty soundly, but he was a really good sport, and he was really friendly and nice about it. He said, hey, you want to come over to my house for a game sometime? And I did. We went to his house, had a game, had some beers. It was a really good time. Some other folks from that same group came over just to check out the game and watch because they were getting new to it. And I've met a lot of people through that group where I was happy to have them in my home for a game, after the first game. Like, I've met some really cool people that way.
No, it's important. This is a social hobby. You'll hear it from everybody. It's a social hobby. It's important to stay somewhat social. And going to a gaming store can, really help out in that direction. And I would suggest that, if you've got a local gaming store or a local games workshop near you and you haven't been, check it out. You don't have to bring all your shit and play a huge game, but just go check it out, talk to the people there, see if it's good.
Yeah, and it's fun seeing familiar faces you meet from the store, because like there's a lot of familiar faces I've seen from stores who like we ran into at Adepticon, I've run into at Nova. It's cool.
One thing, if you or your friends or people you know have some sort of private gaming club, and I would love to hear about how you guys organize it and keep it going. Normally on the show we'd be like, oh, right in with your stupid, horrible gaming thing. We've all heard and read those stories before. I would love to hear more about the organization of an actual working gaming club. I have no idea how it would work. I would love to be a part of one if it could exist. So if you have any experience with that, please contact at 40kbadcast.com. Let us know.
Yeah, I'd like to know, because my group's kind of dead and it makes me sad.
So let's move on.
All right.
To everybody's favorite segment, fact or fan fiction.
Where I read fiction that might be official and it might not be. And it's up to Dan to decide which it is.
Now,
it's
last time...
Usually not.
Last episode on fact or fan fiction, you almost made me pee because I laughed so hard. So...
That I did.
This better be good.
Good is that's a word I'm kind of careful to use in reference to this literature style passage of text.
All right, get to it.
For those of you who don't know what the fuck gene seed is pretty much the DNA stuff of an individual space marine. If the gene seed gets mutated, then the entire chapter is affected. Forget that. Let's get moving. Wah! Here we are, Inquisitor. Apothecary Frigidor of the Snow Guard chapter said, leading them into a small metal chamber. At the end of this chamber was a barren door, locked and barred with adamantium chains. Inquisitor Nox peered closer at it and read in tiny letters at the foot of the 10-foot-tall door, Primordium. What's in here, Apothecary? Asked the Inquisitor. Jane seed, sir. The power-armored superhuman replied dumbly. Our origin, sir. Yeah, right, thought Nox. Yeah, right. Stupid. But still, he said, show me the way. Frigidor fumbled with the locks and chains for 20 minutes before he was able to open the door. Finally, he took out his bolt pistol and shot the lock. We can always replace it. When the stepped inside, a cold gust of wind hit their faces and a putrid smell came to their nostrils. Ugh, what the warp is that? Shouted the Inquisitor. Frigidor and a number of his Terminator brethren quickly stepped inside. A body of some sort lay on the ground, covered in bright orange fungus. No! Oh my gosh! That's Brother Agua! Screamed one of the Terminators. I gotta check the Jane seed. Brother Frigidor dashed past the gaping Inquisitor and found what he was looking for. He showed it, open-mouthed, to his brothers. Uh-oh, thought Nox. The swelled little thing in Frigidor's huge hands was a gene seed, all right. Now they all knew what made that smell and that wind. In Frigidor's hands was a shriveled up something that looked exactly like a piece of poop! 4 exclamation marks. The end.
What the fuck was that? No, don't tell me, because I have to guess, but
all right.
That was the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah. I mean, that's accurate.
Poorly written.
Uh-huh.
Nonsensical.
Uh-huh.
Not interesting.
No.
Not all that funny.
Uh-huh.
It's got to be fan fiction.
It is. Gene seed mutation can make Inquisitors really mad, all lowercase, by Bad 741 from Daka Daka.
I hope he listens to the podcast. I really do. I feel like he gets 40K.
I feel like he gets a sick version of Ian Watson's 40K.
That was it kind of sounded like Ian Watson
at times.
For a minute.
Yeah.
It was bad. That was really bad. But,
it was really bad.
But I think the person writing it, probably what happened is they probably had an idea for something funny in the beginning and then sort of just like lost it. And then it was just like, we're just going to end this in a dumb way.
He's like, gene seed is poop. Good. Yeah, so a fun thing to do is to look up threads with no replies on Taka, and that was one of them. Because like in a bunch you'll get like, hey, that was pretty good. Maybe you could do this. Or chapter 2 was better than chapter 1. But with this it was like,
Crickets.
Nothing.
Fucking crickets.
Fucking desert.
Thanks for that, man. I appreciate that. That was a good one.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, so
happy to be of
before we
service.
get out of here, we have an announcement to make.
We do.
We are doing another fan fiction challenge. Thanks for that fanfare, Campbell. This fan fiction challenge, the theme is Where Are They Now? Take an established character from the 40k universe and describe to us in a couple of pages or less what they are doing in 8th edition.
And it should be about like the one page for a Google Doc sort of thing, because we don't want to read anyone's novella on the air. But with that in your hands, you can take it away.
So where are they now? Take a character, tell us what they're doing in 8th. We're going to be reading stuff the week of July 10th. So please submit your wonderful jewel-like objects of wonder to contact at 40k Badcast by July 10th. And just put where are they now in the subject line so we know what we're looking at.
That's contact at 40kbadcast.com.
Campbell, I'm curious, like, where's Eldrad? What's he up to?
Yeah, is Commissar Yark, like, greasing his claw right now?
What's the Swarm Lord doing?
What is Creed doing inside that Necron's Pokeball?
What is Trazyn the Infinite doing with so many new Pokemans?
How does Marnius Calgar feel about his job being taken by his dad?
That's a really good question. Oh my god, that's really good. He's got to be so pissed.
Yeah. It's like, are you happy your dad's back, or are you sad that he took your job?
Because Marnius Calgar, up to that point, was like the dude in the Imperium. And then fucking Papa Bobby comes back and it's like, hey, check it out. Check out my new fucking armor and shit. These are all great questions. So tell us, listeners.
It's like some reverse nepotism going on there.
Tell us what your favorite characters from the 40k universe are up to at the beginning of 8th edition.
What are your least favorite characters? Write it away.
Yeah, what's Fulgrim up to?
What's in Fulgrim's hole? Reach in and find out. Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
All right, man, let's get the fuck out of here.
Before we wrap up, I want to give a shout out to Alpha Omega Hobby. My buddies Adam and Jake, who I mentioned earlier were running the GW store in Brookline, are opening a new hobby store in Quincy, which is going to be ginormous and have all kinds of cool shit. They're currently taking pre-orders for 8th edition stuff at alphaomegahobby.com, and they'll be doing a big ol' 40k 8th edition launch party on June 17th, and I'm going to be there. You can meet me. You can avoid me. Do what you want to do. Other than that, we got all our typical social media shit. So we got contact.
Real quick.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
When I was in Iceland, I made a friend from Quincy, Massachusetts. You want to guess what his name was?
Sean.
Fucking Quincy.
No.
I fucking hung out with this dude named Quincy from Quincy, Mass in Iceland when I was there for a week last year.
Oh God, it would only be better if his last name was alliterative. Like Quincy Quilliams.
I thought you might like to know that.
Thank you.
Tell us about social media.
All right, so you can reach us at contact at 40kbadcast.com. You can find me on Twitter at BrotherSRM. You can find Dan at Twitter at DBSleazy.
That's correct.
Yeah, DZ Beezy. And you can watch my shit on YouTube at at youtube.com/camhammershow. No new video this week or last week. My wrists are still shitty. They're getting better. When they're better, I've got a cool idea for a video I want to get done. So be on the lookout for that.
Give me that quote, motherfucker.
Your foe is well-equipped, well-trained, battle-hardened. He believes his gods are on his side. Let him believe what we will. We have the tanks on ours.
We'll see you next time on the 40k Badcast.
The Badcast. I'll catch you later, Daniel Manuel.
such a fucking nerd.